Hi, everybody. Welcome to this Devex at COP26 interview on the humanitarian impact of the climate crisis. We're very lucky to be joined by Francesco Rocca, President of the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies. My name is Worley. I'm the UK correspondent at Devex, and I also contribute reporting on COP26. I also contribute to the Newswire, Devex's daily newsletter for the global development sector, and there should be a link popping up on your screens roundabout now. So without further ado, thank you so much for joining us, President Rocca. Really appreciate it. So my first question to you. So the international humanitarian situation is already pretty bleak. There's multiple humanitarian crises bubbling up all over the place. What do you think are the key risks of a warming climate on the humanitarian sector? And can you specify single out a key risk that you're most concerned about?
Thank you, Will. Thank you for the opportunity. Yes, of course. For us as humanitarians, we are very concerned. Climate change has created real and unprecedented humanitarian needs. We, as a federation, we released a report just a few weeks ago, and looking at that figure since the beginning of COVID-19, the numbers are really scary because we had more than 433 extreme events. We lost more than 17,000 lives. And more than 139 million of people were affected by. So looking at these numbers, we are facing a reality that is posing a real threat to the role of the humanitarians in terms of dealing with such magnitude of events, of impact to the life, especially of the most vulnerable. And if we will not receive the right feedback, if we will not be a concrete action after the COP26, of course, we will have a very serious consequence in terms of having hundreds of millions by 2050 in terrible needs of humanitarian assistance. And this is something that we cannot afford in terms of our ability to operate, in terms of the needs of financial support that would be needed to cope with these challenges. And about the specific risk, so there is no one. Honestly, if I look one perspective, because there are many risks compounded and linked to the climate change. The main one, if I look at just about the migration, so how many millions of people will be forced to leave their houses, their land, their families, because the consequences of climate change. This is something that will be unpredictable, but the scientists are saying that desertifications, extreme events will be really increased, as I said. So this is one of the main one in terms of bringing together with these people on the move, social instability, and all the other risks linked to the migration. And also, even now, we are having a lot of difficulty in engaging with the governments about the respect that is needed also to those who are forced to leave their land because the consequences of climate change. So if we look at this, maybe this is the most important one, and but I think that it will be really difficult to cope if the countries and the government will not act during the COP26, and we will not see a concrete commitment followed by a real action after Glasgow.
Yeah, I mean, the unpredictability that you mentioned of the kind of a hybrid crisis that is sort of bubbling up as a result of climate change and kind of compounding each other is something I hear a lot as a journalist, that really kind of worries people in the humanitarian and development sectors. And obviously it's an old sector, it's been going a long time, and is sometimes criticized for not changing with the times enough. So how does the IFRC and the sector in general fit into responding to these crises? What can you your organization do, and what can the sector be doing more generally to respond and to meet these challenges?
This is a very interesting question because, of course, we have to be humble. No? The first instinct in answering that, oh, of course, we are ready. No one will be ready if we look at the real magnitude of the impact of the climate change that the scientists are predicting. So, in a humble way, I answer, I don't know. We will know then if we will have to act on the ground. But by the way, I think the International Federation, especially its 192 members, we are working on the ground. So maybe we are really well positioned if we as humanitarians, so not only the Red Cross pillar, but all the humanitarians, we will really be able to focus on the localization process, to put at the center the local actors. This will be the key together with the adaptation. Are the two key words to face the consequences of the climate change. So in terms of fitting with this challenge, my answer is yes. So we are, I think, in terms of awareness, we are ready. I don't know if we will be in terms of the financial sustainability, because this will depend from the donors, from our stakeholders, and in terms of the support that they will provide to all of us. But in terms of preparation, watching about the role that the volunteers are having on the ground, the role that they are playing in dealing with their own communities, I think that we as a Red Cross, Red Crescent families, especially the national societies, are really ready, unfortunately, because we have to add unfortunately with this crisis. So this is it. In terms of this, I think that we have to be honest that after the World Humanitarian Summit in 2016, we didn't see a real advancement in the dialogue about the localization process in the humanitarian field. And this is something that we must continue with. The dialogue must continue, because there are a lot of resistances in having this dialogue, even in the humanitarian sector. We have to be very, very transparent on this, while at the same moment it is key to succeed the localization process and the grand bargain in general terms.
It's really interesting to hear someone in leadership positions admit that they don't quite know what's going to happen. It's not something we hear so often from leaders. So I appreciate your honesty there. What is it about the localization agenda and local communities that makes that is so important in responding in practical terms to the climate crisis?
This is a lesson learned. We have to learn from the experiences. This is why I'm so humble in answering to these. The lesson learned from the past is that only through the role of the local actors we can make a difference at local communities. Because when we talk about people affected by a disaster, now we are talking about the consequences and the disaster related to the climate change. But in general terms, those who are the first responders are the expression of the local community, and this is why we think that this is the key at the local action, because the dialogue at a local level with the local institution in terms of preparedness, in terms of being able, when we talk about this I think sometimes even inflection word that is resilience. This must happen at local level. So this is why it's so important that this becomes something in the DNA of the humanitarianism, but also for the donors and the governments in watching to our sector when they engage in the dialogue with us. It's a cultural change that we do need it happen, because it's vital for especially for the most vulnerable communities. And but even in the Western country, when we look what has happened in Germany a few weeks ago, so it is at the local level that then the first responders have to work when a disaster strike. And in terms of preparation, in terms of to be ready when floods happen, just as an example, it's there that you do need to be prepared to analyze the ground and if the community will be able to cope and survive after a disaster. So we are continuing this dialogue involving also not only the national institution, but also the local institution through our thousands of local branches of our national societies. And this is something that must continue through the support of the government, and hoping that during the COP26 will be paid enough attention to this in terms of preparation.
You mentioned a cultural change there in terms of the localization agenda, and it seems increasingly clear that we're in a very polarized and increasingly fractured kind of world. How does one go about doing that, or the sector go about achieving that in the kind of more competitive geopolitical environment? And does it need to come from the top, or does it need to be more of a bottom-down effort?
Both. This is, I think, that we have to meet, because we have to admit that in this very polarized world, the role of the political leaders sometimes it seems to me very weak, and it seems that too often they are following the fears of the people, or feeding the fears sometime, looking in general terms, not only talking about the climate change, of course, but even on this, that not engaging in a real dialogue, with them. So generally talking, I have to admit that is difficult for us sometimes, especially when it's polarized, but also the humanitarian issues or the scientific evidences are subjects to the political divide, and this is unacceptable. So you cannot question the scientific evidences. Why? And when this happens, it has consequences on the life of people. So, but when the society is so divided and so polarized, as you rightly said, it is difficult also for us to really engage. And the result is this: what I now has become a mantra, like something that I often repeat. A lot of statements, a fruitful meeting, fruitful, inspiring meeting, but then without concrete facts. Even when we fully disagree, then the outcome is the fruitful meeting. But this is not the reality, especially when it comes about the life of the people, and especially when it comes about the climate change, or during these people about COVID-19 and how to deal with the vaccine equity, just to mention another example. And then too many people is losing their lives, or is a risk because this inaction or political division.
Yeah. Bringing it back to COP, what do you think should be the key objectives of the humanitarian sector for COP? What would be a success in humanitarian terms to emerge from this summit?
Okay, first, let me say, as a citizen of the world, there are two aspects. So the first one is the reduction of the greenhouse gas emissions, and this is something that we do expect. But this is not enough, because we know that we will have consequences for many years. So in terms of investing in preparedness and in early action is something that is part of the cultural change that we were discussing before, and increasing finance for these. That having a real target on the most vulnerable and the least developed countries, because they are those who are less responsible of the greenhouse gas emissions, but they are paying the highest consequences of it. So this would be the perfect combination, and then let's hope not only about the official outcome and the official statement, but also then after the commitment that will be made, I hope, in the COP, the real action. So let's see in the following weeks and months, not years, because we cannot wait years, about concrete action to really transform the way we have dealt so far with the climate change, empowering the local communities, empowering the local actors in the humanitarian sector, and also finally one of the important requests that we underline is also related to the conflicts. This is we released a statement together with my colleague Peter Maurer about the protection of the environment, because too often in the conflict areas the environment is severely affected, and once again those who are paying the consequences of these are the most vulnerable and losing their livelihoods and the opportunity to survive.
Francesco, thank you so much. 15 minutes is just not enough, but moving from talk to action to transformation is not just a key desire of the humanitarian sector for this COP. I think it's something that spreads across different sectors. I hope everyone at home enjoyed watching this. You can subscribe to the Devex newswire. A link should be popping up. I'd just like to thank you again, President Rocca, for your time with us today, and thank you all at home for joining us.
Thank you, Will. Thank you for the opportunity to Devex. Thank you so much.